What about now? Now we have audio. Okay. All right. Sorry about that little glitch. I don't know if I need to reduce the volume of it. It looks okay. Can everyone hear me okay? Is it too loud? It looks like the volume might be a little too loud. All right, you're watching Co-op for Two. It's Tuesday, September 23rd, 2025. I'm not sure what went wrong with the audio, but I did notice it earlier last week. I and I messed with it a little bit, and now it's back. All right, well, it's a fitting way to start today's stream. I've been off the last week due to a sickness, a little bit of a flu. You could probably hear I still have a little bit of a cough. A bit louder than normal. Yeah, I wouldn't mind reducing that back down. Let me just, well, okay, we'll work with it for now. We'll turn it down on the next break. Today we're going to be playing a card-based mystery game that was sent to me by a viewer, Stacy, who sends me games occasionally. This one is called Murder Mystery Party. It's a bit of an odd little Murder Mystery Party Pocket. It's an odd little game from 2023. It uses an app, and it's made to be played in two different ways. One is with a larger group, with players taking on the roles of different characters, and then a separate mode, a deduction mode, which is how we're going to play it. But we're also going to take a look at it and see if we think it might be better with a larger group. I do occasionally have murder mystery dinner parties at my house where everyone plays a role, and this looks like it's trying to sort of walk the line between a dinner party game and a true deduction game, so I'm curious to see how that goes. All right, let's talk a little bit about some other things before we get started. I do appreciate the chat letting me know that the audio wasn't working. I don't really have a good system for testing that. All right, so let's talk a little bit about scheduling and bookkeeping. I will be streaming for the next couple days, trying to catch up for lost time. I think tomorrow we may play a game of Vantage, and then we'll play something on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. To be decided. If you want to help decide what games we play, you can always stop by the Board Game Geek Guild for this channel. There's a thread where we plan out what videos we play, what games we play, and I'm open to suggestions. Then on Sunday afternoon at 1 p.m. we'll do either our regular Dear Homes or we'll play something else. In October, we will be playing some spooky, scary games, and we've got a big queue of them planned out. Jonathan Warner's been helping plan those. If you want to help decide what games we play in October, there's a thread on the Board Game Geek Guild about that. All right, anything else to talk about? Thursday, we won't be streaming. Thursday, I will be at a local board game convention. Kudo Plays is the board game design competition pitch night. If you're in the Champaign area and you're interested in board game design, you might want to stop in for that. That'll be at some local bar here in Champaign. Okay, and thank you to everyone who's been sending me warm wishes to get better. All right, so Murder Mystery Party. Now, I wouldn't mind fixing that audio problem. Let me see if I can grab this little mouse here. Let me see if I can't. Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, I think this is probably closer to what it was before. So probably I'm a little quieter now. Okay, well, we'll see. We'll see. Couple people. Gwen says the feed is buffering. Is everyone else getting audio, video okay? Is it buffering? I'm going to assume it's okay, and we'll just go with it. All right, let's take a look at what we've got here. There's 2 games in this series. They're both listed as New Unpublished Case of Commissario Ricciardi. These are Italian games, I think. And I'm not sure there's any reason to prefer playing one over the other. They're both listed at age 12 and up, both listed at 60-minute games, both using the same system, both written by the same author and illustrated by the same artist. So do we have a preference for which one you want to play? If they're short, maybe we'll play them both. I'm not sure. I'm not sure on Board Game Geek if they're rated, if one is rated more highly than the other. Any preference? I guess we'll play Deadly Sin. All right. Now, guess we shouldn't be looking at the back of that. All right, so you do need an app to play this game. And let's see if we can get everything set up right. Don't look at the cards yet. They contain important secret clues. I don't know why there's not a protection on the back to keep you from seeing it. Okay, so it wants us to use the app. So let's go ahead and get out the app and start it up. And let's see. Pick the adventure we want to play. Okay, so we're playing Deadly Sin. The only options we have here are for sound and stuff. Hopefully the audio here is going to work okay. All right, let's see what we've got. All right, so as you can see, there's a detective mode and a murder party mode. We're going to be playing the 1 to 2 player detective mode. I can see
Deadly Sin.
that there's sound, but I can't hear it.
Naples, 1932. One person has been killed, and there are 6 suspects. The case was entrusted to Commissario Luigi Alfredo Ricciardi of the Royal Police Headquarters of Naples, supported as usual by the faithful Sergeant Raffaele Maione, and you are his investigative team.
So I've got a little problem here. Whatever has gone wrong with the audio has now infiltrated the headphones. So I could see that you were hearing some audio, but I was not. That's a bit of a problem. Let me see what I can do about that. I think what happened is that Windows upgraded to Windows 11, and it has messed with things a bit. All right, well, we're gonna see. You did hear it? Was it narrating it? Is that what was happening? Okay, 1 person's been killed, 6 suspects entrusted to this detective who's got a faithful sidekick, and we're on his investigative team.
It is up to you to help the Commissario find out who is the murderer. Will you be able to do this before the time is over? All the clues are contained in cards that show scenes that the suspects witnessed or information that could shed light on the incident. These clues will be revealed to you in 3 different moments in the game. reading the text and looking closely at the images contained in them. Be careful, because even a seemingly small detail could be fundamental for the investigation.
All right, at least I can hear things now.
Reflect, discuss, and try to understand what beyond appearances really happened. When all the clues are revealed, you must, as a group, give the solution. Will you discover the real culprit? Or will the murder remain unsolved? Or still worse, will you let an innocent be wrongfully accused?
This app will guide you in the game and will dictate the timing and methods of the investigation. If you have any doubt while playing, click on the block notes icon at the top to read all the important clues revealed so far.
Remember, we're playing in this detective mode, and we'll take a look at what the other mode is in case that seems like a better way to play.
Place these 2 introductory cards in the center of the table, as shown here.
All right, so we've got that card and this card in the center of the table with the identity card face up. Which presumably is this one.
Below, place the 6 suspect characters with the identity card side face up. Attention! Never look at the other side of these cards.
Okay. So we've got 6 suspects that go out. It would have been nice if they referred to the face up side in a way that made some logical sense instead of using some term that no one understands. If we just take a look at the back of this box, actually the back of this box doesn't explain how to play it with the group. I guess you only the website does. But presumably if you were playing this with a group of players, each player would take one of these cards and act as that suspect. So we're trying to solve a case, but I guess if you're playing with a group, the people at the group play the role of the suspects.
Place close to each character the corresponding deck of 3 clues face down and in ascending order from top to bottom. The clue number 1 will be on the top.
Okay, so each of these suspects has a little deck of clues, which actually does match how these murder mystery dinner parties often work. If you've ever done one of those, typically each person invited to the party will get some clues that they have to reveal over the course of the dinner. So that's the entirety of the cards in the deck. Just the 3 clues for each suspect.
You are ready to listen to the prologue.
Okay.
La Supreme, the most refined bordello in Naples, located in the center of town on Via Toledo, is run with shrewd entrepreneurial skill by Madame Manon. On the evening of 16 July, the day of the feast of the Madonna del Carmine, the bordello stood locked and shuttered in a gesture of respect for the Holy Virgin. The girls of La Supreme were getting ready to go to the market square, where, dressed up fancy, they'd be able to wander through the market stands, decked out specially for the occasion, mixing and mingling with respectable girls. Count Eduardo de Prosperis, an old friend of Madame, had placed a carriage at their disposal to take the girls to Largo del Carmine. Around 8 p.m., they were all ready to go when Bella, the new prostitute, about whose beauty all of Naples had been raving for months, felt suddenly ill and fainted. The carriage was immediately turned in the direction of the Pellegrini Hospital.
Okay, we'll have to see if we need to take notes later.
There, Dr. Bruno Moto was on duty, and it took him only a few seconds to realize that he was looking at a case of poisoning from hydrogen cyanide, or prussic acid. The doctor's timely intervention and the tiny amount of poison ingested allowed the girl to get off with having her stomach pumped and spending the night in the hospital. At 8:30 p.m. that same evening, Count de Prosperi's butler rushed to police headquarters to report that his employer was dead.
Okay, so that's our victim who's here. He's going to be the dead guy. And the top new prostitute got somewhat sick from
The
poisoning.
Count had felt unwell shortly before dinner, and the doctor, summoned immediately by the butler, had only arrived at the prestigious palace on the Riviera de Chiaia in time to officially certify that the man was dead. The Count's corpse, however, showed all the signs of poisoning by prussic acid. The doctor therefore ordered the butler to head immediately to police headquarters to report what had happened. The day of the poisoning, the Count went out on foot, as he always did in the late morning, and only returned home around 4:30 p.m. that afternoon. He withdrew to his room, saying he wasn't hungry. Around 7:30 p.m., he came downstairs and went into the living room, where he played the piano for a while. Around 8 p.m., he started to feel the first symptoms of discomfort, and he asked his butler to make him a chamomile tea. When the butler returned with the tea, though, De Prosperis already felt so bad that he couldn't drink it. He only had the strength to issue one last command to his faithful servant: go get the carriage and summon the doctor. When the doctor arrived, as mentioned, the Count was already at death's door. The Count practically died in the doctor's arms while he was trying to examine him. The doctor, having realized immediately that this was a case of prussic acid poisoning, told the butler to call for the police to come and investigate the nature of that death. The arrival of the medical examiner in the person of Dr. Bruno Moto immediately cast a more unsettling light on events. It seemed highly unlikely that 2 cases of prussic acid poisoning in a single day could be mere coincidence.
Okay, so we've got 2 cases of poisoning, 1 killed, the other one, she's fine.
Flip the card with the case name. Look at its back closely. It could reveal interesting details. Read aloud the victim's data and then flip the card to the other side.
Okay, so we've got our overview card. We're told to flip it and study it. Okay, so here's the scene of the crime. I guess this is the bedroom where the Count de Prosperous is staying. And I see some sort of weird artifact here, but anything else unusual about his room? Not really. Doesn't look like he's been sleeping in his bed, though. Mismatched pillows, is that important? Doesn't look like he's actually been using this room much. Okay, and then we're told to read this card about our victim. 49-year-old bachelor, inherited the title and a boundless fortune from his family. He's a regular at La Supreme and a longtime friend of Madame Manon. He loves the pleasures of life and indulges in what he desires without reservation. He's generous, but a bit of a braggart. Okay. And then we're told to flip it, and we're seeing him as he died. Okay. Hand is ramped up. I don't see any other clues, though. All right, so I guess we'll just put these on the table like this.
Reveal the clue number 1 of each character in the centre of the table. Read aloud the newly discovered clues and the identity cards of these characters. Attention! Never look at the other side of the characters.
So I guess at the back of these characters is some information that we're not supposed to see. Read the clue 1 in the center and the newly and the identity cards. I mean, surely we're allowed to read this. I'm not sure why it didn't tell us to read these, but I guess we're now reading each of their information and clues. All right, here are our 6 suspects. Lucietta Esposito, housekeeper of at La Supreme. She has the right body, attributes, and attitude to aspire to a brilliant career as a prostitute. But she doesn't seem interested. She does her work, and perhaps one of the customers at La Supreme will someday notice her and make her an honest, prosperous woman out of her. In fact, now it looks like that dream is about to come true. She's very clever, but not very sincere. It looks like it's about to come true. Why is that? All right, let's read her first clue. Country Road, July 1924. You can't figure out how Nana ever ended up here. You know, she comes from a respectable family back home in the village. She's a very private person. But from time to time, she's mentioned her childhood and sister to you. And so now I guess we're getting a little glimpse into her past. Violet, you'd better stay out of trouble. I don't see why you're so unsettled. My darling big sister, don't you get bored with this dull and careful life our parents want for us? This is a little weird. So we're told this is Lucietta Esposito. Move these up here. So our suspect is Lucietta Esposito. And this is Lucietta's clue. But it's a comment about Nana, who's this suspect. So I'm not, is Lucietta thinking about Nana? You can't figure out how Nana ever ended up here. And is this Nana? I guess this is supposed to be Nana. This must be Nana, and Nana is talking to Violet, who's her sister. Okay, that's weird. I guess Lucietta is reflecting on Nana. All right, well, let's take a look at Nana and her information. Birth name, Floriana Calise. She's been at La Supreme for a year. Her unusually refined manners and her unquestionable beauty make her the customer's favorite. She's a reserved woman. Little is known about her past or her choices in life. She's very intelligent, but not very sociable. Okay, and now let's see what her clue is about. It says, Belle has had a tough life. She grew up in an orphanage and then had to fend for herself before winding up at La Supreme. She's been in much worse places. So her clue is about this other person. And then we get a little bit of a flashback memory of Belle's life. I don't understand why this person's clue is about this person's life. Does anyone understand the idea of that? So here's Nana's clue is telling us about Belle. She's been in worse places. DJ Moneycut has a theory. He says, I imagine if you were doing the party mode, you wouldn't get clues about yourself. Yeah, that's one interesting way to think about it. Normally in the murder mystery dinner parties, you do have clues that you're supposed to reveal. And they are autobiographical, but you might be like, I heard this about this person. This is very weird that it's giving us this, like, true fact insights. All right, well, I find that a bit bizarre, but we'll just keep going with it. All right, let's look at Belle. We're going to jump around. So Lucietta told us about Nana. Nana told us about Belle. Let's hear from Belle now. Her birth certificate reads Isabella Esposito, a daughter of the Virgin Mary, as they call the little orphan girls raised at the Casa del Annunziata. When she turned 18 after leaving the convent, she became a working girl. One step at a time, she made her way up to the top floor of the city's most deluxe bordello. She's very determined, but doesn't have a great deal of empathy. Okay, and then her clue is about Vincenzo. Okay, so Vincenzo told you he grown up in the countryside, raised by an elderly couple he called his grandparents, but who never said a word about his parents. They seemed quite poor, but they made sure he never lacked for a thing. Okay, so Belle is telling us a little bit about Vincenzo here. Grew up with his grandparents in the countryside. He called them his grandparents. Now, this guy looks a little bit like this guy. All right, let's give Belle her clue back and move on to Vincenzo. Pianist at La Supreme, roughly 20 years old, handsome, laconic, and melancholy, he grew up outside of Naples. Madame Manon has a special concern and tenderness for him that has given plenty of fuel to the more malicious gossips. He's very sensitive, but he has wild mood swings. And let's see what clue he has to tell us about. Let go of me, that hurts. I told you before, you'd better not even glance at other men when you're with me. Have I made myself clear? So this is some event at La Supreme, February 1929. Giovanni is the scion of a prominent family. He used to come to La Supreme, and he behaved in a manner ill-suited to his standing. He had a bad temper and could be a bully at times. So this is about Giovanni, another one of our suspects. Behaved like a bully. All right, let's move on to Giovanni. Giovanni Alfano, the boyfriend of Lucietta, the housekeeper. He's a young man from an excellent family and was once an habitué of the bordello. Ever since he fell in love with Lucietta, though, he seems to feel a sense of repulsion for that world. He's very protective, but he doesn't have much self-control. Okay, so we were told, remember Lucietta, the first person we read, she says, now it looks like that dream is about to come true. She's the maid. She's won herself this guy who's very possessive. And in fact, we just saw him, the memory of him seemed to be of Lucietta? Possibly. Okay, so but that was Vincenzo's memory. Let's see what Giovanni's memory is. So here's the Alfano home, April 1931. Your father and the Count have been friends all their lives. Your father once told you that the Count, aged 20, fell in love with a prostitute. You figured out that that prostitute must have been Madame. So he's talking about the Count, our murder victim. And he's saying that his father and the Count have been friends, and his father once told you the Count, when he was a young man, fell in love with a prostitute who's the Madame of the entire brothel. And now we're going to finally read about her. Birth name Filomena Martone. She worked as one of the city's most beautiful prostitutes until shortly after turning 20, she began running La Supreme, the finest bordello in Naples. She's about 40, still captivating, though a few gray hairs have appeared on her head. She's very clever, but quite rigid. Okay, and let's see what her memory clue is. You plucked Lucietta off the streets when she was still just a child, making ends meet by stealing wealthy ladies' pocketbooks. Okay, so she's telling us about Lucietta, the maid, and her relationship to Lucietta. So she rescued Lucietta when she was a child, stealing wealthy ladies' pocketbooks. Okay, so we've got a little circle of people who have clues about each other. This is a little bit structured how a murder mystery dinner would work. Each person has some information about the others. And a relationship to our victim. All right. Let's proceed.
Now you can start the investigation. Starting now, you can discuss, confront, and try to reconstruct what happened.
All right, so we've read the introduction and the first clues. Now we're going to start the actual investigation.
The timer will indicate the minutes available to you. When the time runs out, you will hear a sound signal, and then you will have to stop the discussion and listen to the first interlude.
All right, so I'm not sure how much we're really going to follow these timer, but okay, it's clear that we have some time. And then we're going to hear an interlude. But what do we get to do in that time? I don't get it, guys. Okay, there's no rule book in this box. So I guess the idea is we just discuss, but are we allowed to read these other clues? Or are we just supposed to discuss only with the clues we have available? We do have these notes that it has helpfully kept the important parts. So we can review these, but is the timer going now? No, I've paused it. But there's no back button. And there's no... We're just supposed to have 10 minutes, but are we not? I assume we're not allowed to look at future clues. So is it just that now we should just think about and discuss the clues, just the first clue of each person? So it's July 16th at 8 p.m. Bell. All right, we'll try to go through this, and I mean, I'm not super thrilled with the instructions of this game, but let's see if we can at least organize our table here and make sense. Okay, so Belle gets ill. So Belle is our determined prostitute here. And the maid has told us a little bit about her. No, that's about Nana. Nana has told us a little bit about Belle. She had a tough life, grew up in an orphanage, had to fend for herself. Okay, so that's the one who got sick at 8 p.m. Then she goes to the hospital and gets saved. She's been poisoned by prussic acid. At 9:30 p.m., our Count is dead. And here we have his timeline. Came home at 4:30. At 8, he starts to get a little bit sick. And then when the doctor arrived, he's dead. So 8 p.m., the girl falls ill, gets sick, goes to the hospital. And at 8 p.m., he gets sick. So almost at the same exact time, the two of them are sick. And the game has told us that we're supposed to be investigating. Oops, we're not supposed to turn that over. Okay, chat says, note Belle's last name. Okay, Belle's last name is Isabella Esposito. And that's interesting because the maid's name is Lucietta Esposito. That is very interesting. So are the maid and Belle related? It is interesting that actually these people have different last names. Like Madame Manon, her last name is Marton. Nana's name is Floriana Calise. So yeah, it does seem like maybe we want to remember their proper last names. Filomena Martone, Lucietta Esposito, Isabella Esposito, and Floriana Calise. Guess I'm going to resume this thing. If you were having a murder dinnery, it would make sense that you would have some time to just discuss things over dinner. We were told that the Count used to date Madame Manon, or was in love with her, as a young man of 20. We're told that Giovanni is in love with Lucietta. We were told Madame Manon rescued the maid. And she was just a child. You plucked Lucietta off the streets when she was just a child. So you could imagine, are we doing, is it something about a will? Is this person, who would have a motive to want to kill Belle and the Count? That should be our question. And how did she poison, if they were both poisoned on purpose? If they were both poisoned on purpose, then the question would be, who would have the motive to try to kill both of these people? Or do we have an accidental death of one of them? I mean, do we have one person killed on purpose and one person made sick on accident? And what about these two sisters should we care about? So one of the sisters' name is Violet. So it's a little weird because we have Lucietta Esposito, Isabella Esposito, and then we have Violet, a younger daughter. Her sister, she only had one sister. Why is it that it is weird that we've got two Esposito family members, but no Violet Esposito? All right, well, let's push the skip button and see what happens here. Now, I assume we weren't allowed to read clue 2 for anyone, so now it's going to give us more information. This is very common. If you were playing a murder mystery dinner, there would be Act 1, 2, and 3, and then some information would come out. This sounds like what's going to happen here.
Commissario Luigi Alfredo Ricciardi and the Brigadier Maione are the first to reach the Count's palace. As is customary, the preliminary examination of the scene of the murder was the exclusive prerogative of Ricciardi, who entered along through the door to the Count's bedroom.
Which I guess might be this.
As you may know, Commissario Luigi Alfredo Ricciardi has the ability to see the last moments of life of victims of violent death in the place of their death. This secret gift is called by him the Fact.
To see what the crime scene looks like to the Commissario, go to the next page and scan the victim card with your device. You will be shown what the victim was saying or thinking at the moment of their death.
That's an interesting idea. Point the camera at the victim's card. Does it want us to look at this? Whoa, look at that! Damned promises. Now you would think it'd be narrating this, but it's not. I can see you're not hearing anything, and I'm not hearing anything either. Damn promises. The Count lays face up in his bed, his eyes pale and wide open, his hand tight in a firm grip, recalls the energy he always showed while alive. His lips, twisted in a grimace of pain, utter incessantly the same short phrase. Damned promises. All right, so we lost audio. We don't know why. We had a cool little scene that happened, though. And now the audio's gone. It's decided no longer to give us any audio. Ricciardi's first investigations focused on the Bordello La Supreme. The woman who ran the place, Madame Manon, was overwrought over what had happened. She had known the Count for years. The woman told Ricciardi that de Prosperis had come to the bordello around lunchtime to say hello, as he so often did. She hadn't seen him arrive because she'd gone to her dressmaker. The Count spent a while with Belle, the only girl who'd stayed behind in the bordello, while the others had all gone out to do some shopping prior to the big celebration that evening. Of course, the two of them had taken seats in one of the waiting rooms because on the day of Our Lady, we don't work here. So now we've got a reason why the Count and Belle might both be poisoned. They were both hanging out alone while everyone else went out. After a while, Nana and Lucietta also returned. When she came back, Madame too joined the company. They chatted about this and that. The Count was gallant and kind, like always. He seemed unconcerned, and he showed no signs of discomfort or feeling unwell. The last to arrive had been the pianist, and shortly thereafter the Count had taken his leave, promising that he'd send a carriage later to convey the girls to the Festival of Our Lady. The following afternoon, once the autopsy had been completed, Dr. Bruno Moto confirmed to Ricciardi that what had already seemed clear from the start, the Count had been poisoned with prussic acid. In his intestine had been found substantial traces of amygdalin, a cyanogenic glycoside found in bitter almonds, the same chemical substance that Belle had ingested in much smaller quantity. All right, now we know one got sick from having a small quantity and one died from a large quantity. Ricciardi and Mayon went back to La Supreme to interview the other girls present there. In so doing, they learned that on the 16th of July, a box of liquor-filled chocolate bonbons had been delivered to the bordello for Madame Manon, sent by an anonymous admirer. Okay. So is this the delivery of the poison, an almond-flavored bonbon filled with cyanide sent to the bordello for Madame Manon by an anonymous admirer? Madame detests liquor-filled chocolate bonbons, however. She also detests anonymous admirers. Two very good reasons for her to decide to give the box in turn to Belle. When the Count arrived, Belle, knowing just how fond he was of chocolate, went to her room to get the box of chocolates and offered it to him. She tasted just a couple of them, because she's always careful about gaining weight, but the Count, like a child, stuffed his face with bonbons. So much so that Belle, in a mix of the serious and the facetious, told him that she'd better take the box back to her room before he wound up getting drunk on all the liquor. Of course, the chocolate bonbons that remained in the box, later analyzed for their chemical composition, turned out to be poisonous, every last one of them. After further questioning, Mayon determined that the box had been delivered by a street urchin, or scugnizo, to Lucietta, the housekeeper. There was no accompanying note, only the spoken message conveyed by the boy. These are for Madame Manon, from an admirer who esteems her greatly. Okay. So we've lost audio. That's okay. And now we've got the end of Act 1. A whole bunch has been revealed to us. It seems like someone was trying to poison the Madame. All right, let's see. Reveal the clue 2 of each character in the center of the table and read it aloud. Now you can resume the investigation. Starting now, you can discuss, confront, and try to reconstruct what happened. Okay, so it showed something. I clicked on the button and it disappeared and we can't go back. But probably it just reminded us that we can go and read important clues here. All right, so maybe someone can say what it flashed on the screen. But here we have, they've got this poison from cyanide, a little bit ingested by Belle, a lot by the Count. And that's the total summary of all that information. That it thinks the only clue of import is that a little bit was eaten by Belle, a lot by the Count, and all of the bonbons in the box were poisoned. I don't know why it's not summarizing other information. It seemed like a lot of the other information we heard was important, including the fact that it was delivered for the Madame. She doesn't like chocolate bonbons, so she gave them to Belle. One of her top prostitutes, and we're told that Belle and the Count hung out together alone before the group all came back. And now we're allowed to read the second clue from everyone. Why don't we take our first break here? We'll come back. We'll read clue 2 for everyone. We'll see if we can't figure out this case. It's clear we're going to get to read everything and then solve it. So I do have some early thoughts about this as a deductive game versus a murder mystery party game. But we'll save that for when we're finished. For those of you who are going to keep joining me for this game, I'll see you in 8 minutes. All right, so I did complain that the app wasn't showing us that the notes for the app was just telling us some very short details here, but it's not true because I can see what's happened is that it's added notes to the beginning. Like, we knew this already. At 8 p.m., they both start to feel sick. That suggests they ate the almonds at the same time. But actually, if we scroll up, it's added notes to the top. So the brothel is closed on July 16th. That same morning, the bonbons are delivered by an anonymous admirer, delivered by a street urchin who gives them to Lucietta, and the madame gives them to Belle because she doesn't like anonymous admirers and she doesn't like chocolate. And then we're told that Belle and the Count were together. Now, it is interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to think that it's Madame because then she would have had to deliver them to herself. It doesn't seem likely. But okay, seems like they both got poisoned when they got together there in the afternoon before everyone came back. Shortly before the Count left, the pianist arrived. Okay. All right, so let's go and look at clue number 2 from everyone. All right, where do we want to start? Let's start, I guess we'll start with Lucietta again. She got the bonbons delivered. Let's read her clue number 2. It says, from hiding, this is Lucietta thinking, from hiding, you eavesdropped on a moment of intimacy between Belle and the Count. A setup like Madame's, I've been dreaming about it all my life. Darling, just you wait. I'll find you a fabulous setup in Rome. Even better, you'll be able to stop living this way. You'll be a fine lady, trust me. Okay, so the bordello was supposed to be closed, but clearly the Count and Belle were sleeping together and had sex while everyone was gone. And this box is open. Is this the bonbons they're eating? It's empty, so I'm not sure it is. Or is it just a present? But okay, so they're a couple. Belle and the Count were sleeping together in Belle's room. Remember we said, like, the Count's room didn't look? Okay, but Jamie says, look, note the date. This is not the night. This is not the night they died. This is in May. In May of the same year. We're not even told the year, but okay, May. So a couple months earlier. Now, Belle is one of the stars at this brothel, so maybe Madame doesn't like that the Count is going to take Belle away. Okay. Now let's go to Belle's clue number 2. What is her memory? June 15th, 1932. This is the day, this is a month before. I'm afraid Madame will never let me go. Viper that she is, she sunk her claws into me. Don't worry, sweetheart. I'll take care of things. Just wait and see. You happen to witness a conversation between Lucietta and Giovanni. Okay, so the maid and her boyfriend have been overheard by Belle. He's planning to take her away. Okay. That's Belle's second clue. All right, now let's go to Giovanni's second clue. See what he remembers. A memory in an unspecified place and date. You seem to remember a blonde prostitute who closely resembled Nana. No one's seen her for months now. What could have become of her? I mean, it looks like Belle, but it's not Belle. It's someone else who's disappeared. That's weird. Okay. And she resembled Nana. Let's look at Nana's second clue. Madame's drawing room at La Supreme, June 1932. So again, last month. You overheard Madame and the Count arguing. She had an icy expression as usual, but deep down you could tell how angry she was. You're getting too attached to her. This might turn into a problem. I might make up my mind to get rid of her. So are they talking about Belle? Now, Madame did give the poisoned bonbons to Belle. So is Madame trying to kill Belle? Very interesting. Okay, well, let's see what Madame remembers. Entrance to La Supreme, July 16th, 1932 at 10:30 a.m. Okay, so this is the morning of the murder. You couldn't believe it when someone sent you chocolate bonbons. Could any admirer of yours fail to know how much you hate chocolate bonbons? And after all, you never accept gifts of that sort. Why, of course, darling. I'm glad to give you these chocolate bonbons. As you know, I never eat them. Please take them. They look homemade. So here she is giving the bonbons to Belle, and she is remarking that surely everyone should know that she's not going to eat these. This gives her a bit of an alibi, right? Because she'd figure out a better way to poison someone than have the delivery of stuff that she knows she doesn't like. It's just a little bit, it just seems like a little bit too weird a way to poison someone by giving a gift to yourself that everyone knows you won't like. But what? Did someone give it to her knowing that she would give these to Belle? That's the question. How would they know that she would give them to Belle? Like, if you wanted to murder Belle, so you give this girl these poisons, that doesn't seem logical. If you wanted to kill Belle, you send Belle some chocolates. All right. There's the Madame. All right, let's look at Vincenzo's clue. He's the piano player. Madame's drawing room at La Supreme, April 1932, so months ago. You saw Madame give Belle a hefty bonus. It was generous, but the look on her face was envy more than gratitude. Okay, but more importantly, we've got some clues in the picture here. We've got Madame's safe in her drawing room, and she's putting the key in this flower pot. Okay, Vincenzo. So I think we've seen the second clue from everyone. So I've seen 2 clues from everyone, it seems. The weird ones here are Giovanni, who has some memory of a blonde prostitute who looks like Nana, who's disappeared months ago. And Vincenzo has a memory of Madame putting the key. More envy than gratitude. So did Madame want to get rid of Belle? And she set up these poison bonbons just as a way to distract, to make it look like she didn't want to kill Belle. She would be the one person who would be able to directly give them to Belle. Just seems like it would be easier to just make anonymous bonbons to Belle if you wanted to kill Belle, rather than have them go through you. All right, well, I guess we would talk about this if we were in a group. Is there anything, well, let's talk about it. Is there anything to talk about before we reveal the next act? I'm thinking Lucetta's boyfriend sent the chocolate to Madame to get her free from the Madame. Nana's clue about Belle's past mentioned she had a worse life. I agree with DJ. That's an interesting idea. So what you're thinking is that Lucietta, the maid, who's dating Giovanni, and Belle overheard the 2 of them talking. And the maid says, I'm afraid Madame will never let me go. Viper she is. She sunk her claws into me. And he says, don't worry, I'll take care of things. Just wait and see. So DJ's theory is that this guy sends poison to Madame to kill her so that the maid can be free. And he wouldn't know that Madame wouldn't accept gifts, right? Because he's not around her that often. His other memory is about the blonde prostitute. Okay. I am very curious when we finish this to look at how this plays differently when you play it in a dinner mode. All right, well, I think it's time for us to go to the second act. Brigadier Maione goes to pay a call on Bambinella, who would love to frequent places like La Supreme in an attempt to learn information that may prove useful in finding the solution to the case. As usual, Bambinella proves to be an inexhaustible source, showing also how much she knows about the place. Here's Bambinella. I'd love to hear this, but the app has decided that it doesn't want to play any more narration for us. Why, hello there, Brigadier. What a pleasure. Have you come for my fine ersatz coffee, or is this about the mishap at La Supreme? Horrifying, eh? I can't stand to think about it. One day you pop a chocolate bonbon into your mouth, and the next day you're dead. Bambine, why don't you brew me a cup of that filthy ersatz coffee and tell me what you know without wandering off topic, because this is really not the day for it. Brigadier, but with you it's never the day for it. You really ought to relax a little bit. Why, if you'll sit down right here, I can give you a massage, which I assure you my habitual clients... Bambine, don't you dare get any closer to me or I'll throw you out the window, I swear it. Sit down over there at a safe distance. Tell me everything you know. All right already. I don't get angry. It's bad for your blood pressure. Well, what is it you want to know? Everything, Bambine. Everything you can tell me. All right, then, let's start with Madame Manon, who runs the bordello. Until 20 years ago, she was a working girl, an ordinary whore. And then from one day to the next, she retired with honor and wide esteem. Shortly thereafter, she started running La Supreme, where she found the money to open her own business, though, was more than anyone could figure out. There are those who claim that among her customers there must have been someone wealthy who fell head over heels for her and decided to help her get out of the trade. But no one could ever say the name of this enamored moneybag, Brigadier. Well, if not even you know this name, Bambine, then there's really no point of me asking around about it, true enough. Modestly speaking, Brigadier, if there's a piece of information I can't figure out, it means that information simply doesn't exist. All right, then, let's move on. Lucietta Esposito is the housekeeper. The housekeeper is a good girl, but she's only got one thing on her mind. She wants to marry a rich man. And as far as anyone knows, she's even found a sucker, the son of a good family who wants to marry her. Of course, I doubt quite strongly his family will let him marry her without some serious objections. And neither would Madame, from what I've heard. But from what I know about Lucietta, she's not about to let anyone take the morsel off her plate. Not now that she's about to bite into it. And just who would this morsel be, Bambine? His name is Giovanni Alfano. He's a fine young man. He used to frequent La Supreme every blessed day of the week. He really was a loyal customer. But then he became acquainted with Lucietta and stopped frequenting the place as a client. Trust me, though, Brigadier, the family's going to declare open warfare on her. It's one thing to patronize prostitutes. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's quite another matter to marry a housekeeper, to say nothing about the housekeeper of a bordello. Can you imagine? No, Bambine, I can't imagine, but let's drop that. Just tell the story. Oh, all right, then. Who else is there? Ah, right, Nana. That girl, Brigadier, it's not clear what the dickens she does up there. Customer of mine who frequents La Supreme, if I'm not available, says that she speaks very well, has refined manners, and to hear him tell it, she even went to school. He says she comes from a family in the provinces, but not without resources. Personally, I've only met her a couple of times, but I have to tell you, as far as strange goes, that girl is strange. She asks lots and lots of questions. Then she has a face I've already seen somewhere, but I just can't seem to recall where. You're trying to recall? Tell me about this belle. Isabella Esposito? As far as pretty goes, she's pretty, but she thinks she's a starlet of the silver screen. Certainly the girl wasn't lucky. She was a daughter of Our Lady, an orphan who was raised by the nuns. But you know what the nuns are like, Brigadier. They seem so good and kind with their lace and their cakes, but they're monsters. As soon as the girl turned 18, they showed her to the door with Christian charity, and she wound up at La Supreme. A girlfriend of mine who also worked as a whore under Madame told me that Belle was telling anyone who'd listen that soon she'd be able to change her life. She was going to become the maitresse of a bordello in Rome. Brigadier, what can I tell you? The world is what you make of it. But what I do know is that Madame Manon, even if she treats her like a queen, because you know that her kind of beauty is what brings in the rich customers, still glares at her suspiciously. And of course, that Belle reminds her of what she looked like when she was young. Trust me, she has that same kind of head on her shoulders. Sure enough, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Bambanella, the refined student of the human heart. Would you just give me a break? Give me information and spare me the rest. Ah, Brigadier, what a nasty temper you have. Who else is there? Ah, I know, the pianist, Vincenzo Matarisi. Gossip says that the Madame must have fallen for the young man. But if you ask me, and as you put it, I do understand something about the human heart, I can assure you that Madame's love for Vincenzo is of quite another variety, and that the sweet eyes she casts in his direction are the spitting image of the handsome young pianist. The sweet eyes she casts in his direction are the spitting image. Sure, I understood that. You still don't have a clear picture of the situation. Here are the latest clues to help you solve the case, or maybe not. Reveal clue 3 of each character in the center of the table. Read it aloud. Now you can resume the investigation. Starting now, you can discuss, confront, and try to reconstruct what happened. And then there's a timer. When the timer goes out, you have to solve the case. All right, let's recap the important clues according to the notes. These are all notes we knew before from the previous act. Has anything been added? Yes, okay. Madame Manon was a sex worker up to 20 years old. She retired. That's when she fell in love with the Count, or the Count fell in love with her. We're told we don't know where she got the money to start her bordello, but there were rumors about a wealthy former client, which could have been the Count. The maid wants to marry someone rich. She's found her boyfriend. This other prostitute tells us that the boyfriend's family is never going to accept the marriage. And probably the Madame won't want to let the maid go anyway. And then the boyfriend of the maid was a regular customer. If he's a regular customer, maybe he should know that the Madame won't eat bonbons. Then we learn a little bit about Nana. This was the one thing that actually jumped out at me a little bit. Nana speaks well, has refined manners, and seems to come from a provincial but respectable family. She's curious and looks very alike to someone who used to hang out at the La Supreme. So that's the one. Let me take a break here. I wanted to mention this. So this guy says, the boyfriend of the maid says, he remembers a prostitute who used to look like Nana. No one's seen her for months. And then this says that this other prostitute says that Nana looks like someone who used to work at La Supreme. So the question is, did Nana have a blonde sister, or was Nana it was Nana like dyed her hair blonde and worked at the Boss Supreme. Refined manners, unquestionable beauty make her the customer's favorite. Little is known about her. She's intelligent, not very sociable. And then we learn a little bit more about Belle, who was orphaned and raised by nuns. Where is our story about that? Here's the backstory of Belle. Grew up in an orphanage, had to tend for herself. She's been in worse places. That was in Nana's clue. When the nuns kicked Belle out, she started her job. Okay. Recently, she said she would change her life, and we know the Count has told her, I'm going to take you away from here. I'll set you up with your own bordello, just like he set up the Madame. So clearly the Madame has reason to be jealous that one of her star prostitutes is going to be taken away. The pianist, now, this is the part I didn't fully understand. The pianist says, watch my Madame with eyes full of attention. Someone said the affection is returned. So we're told that the Madame is fond of him. Wild mood swings. All right, so we get to read clue 3. All right, let's go. Let's start with Vincenzo's clue 3, the piano player. Let's see what he has to say. I went this way. My beloved, don't be angry with me. Please accept this ring as a renewed pledge of our promise. You'll see I'll make everything right. To Madame Manon. The Count left a letter for Madame on your piano earlier this month, 1 week before all this. The Count left a letter for Madame on your piano asking you to tell her. And you read it, but then you put it back on top of the piano. A short time later, it disappeared. You never thought to notify the recipient. Please accept this ring as a renewed pledge. Can we catch anyone wearing that ring? Our promise, you'll see. Remember on his dying bed, he said, promises, promises. Why a week before this is he promising to make everything right? And why would he leave this with the piano player? And who took it away? How strange. That is a very strange clue. All right, let's read Madame Manon's clue 3. Madame's drawing room, May 1932. There are objects missing from the safe. You suspect Lucietta, and you told her clearly you'll report her to the police unless she gives them back. You can't seriously imagine I'd let you go off to marry your prince unless you give back what you took, right? Or would you rather have his family know all about your past? I stole nothing. I don't even know how to open your safe. Leave me alone. Okay, May 1932, things missing. We know the piano player in April saw where she hid the key. So I feel like the piano player has stolen from her. And that when the piano player is looking at her, the young piano player, I feel like maybe all he wants is her money. So I think our piano player is the one robbing Madame. And now we know why Madame won't let the maid go, because she feels like the maid has stolen from her. Okay. Now let's go and see the maid's last memory. July 2nd, 1932, so 2 weeks ago, you heard Vincenzo arguing with Madame. You've never told me the truth, but now you're going to have to. Okay, so it seems like maybe he got the letter and he's like, what's going on with this letter? What promise did the Count make to you? Look, there's a picture of, is that like a relative of the Count on the thing? It's the bedroom. Ballroom, sorry, the ballroom. That's his piano. And that's the ring, clearly. So he said he left, that the Count left this letter and it disappeared. You never thought to notify the recipient. That's your memory, so this has to be true. But it sure looks like it's sitting right there. This was July 10th. This was a week later. You have a memory. That's weird. Like, whose memory is this? This is Lucietta. So Lucietta overhears this scene on July 2nd, but Vincenzo's memory is from July 10th, claiming that he never notified Madame, and yet here it is on the piano. That's weird. I don't know how to make sense of both of those. All right. Well, let's see what Giovanni, the boyfriend of the maid, has to say. July 12, 1932. Okay, so 4 days before the murder, he looks like he's got the box of bonbons. You're positive the Count was in love with Belle, but now he's told you that the girl's about to leave. I've found Belle a new arrangement. She will go to work in a beautiful brothel in Rome with some of my acquaintances. And this is at the entrance. So like the entrance hall, they're having a nice cup of coffee with a mocha pot. And you're sure he's in love with her, and yet here he is moving her off to Rome with some of my acquaintances. So does Belle think he's in love with her, but he's really just gonna pawn her off to another bordello? Instead of like, madams, I've been dreaming about it all my life. Even better, you'll stop living this way. You'll be a fine lady. Okay, so maybe he's not really in love with her. He's just gonna set her up in a new brothel. What's going on here, though? Is he eating these bonbons? We're told he loves chocolate. I think maybe he's just got a different box of chocolates that he likes eating. All right. So this person knows that he likes these chocolates. But why does he care, Giovanni? Giovanni doesn't really care, right? He's the maid's boyfriend. Okay, let's look at Nana's last clue. It's the notary office, July 19th. So after the death, the count has left something for each of the girls at La Supreme, including the housekeeper. Most of his estate, however, will go to Madame and Vincenzo. Uh-huh. Oh, I see something right off the... I now see something. Look at this. What do you notice here? What do you notice? What do you notice that is related to what we just read? There's something very important here. That makes a lot of things make sense now. He's Madame's son. Exactly right. So we got this weird comment by the other prostitute that says when the Madame is looking at him, the eyes looking back are hers. They're related. And now we know she had an affair with the Count 20 years ago. And now we see that Vincenzo is 20 years old. So Vincenzo, the piano player, is Madame and the Count's son. And here we're being told that actually when he dies, he's left it to Madame and Vincenzo. And so probably this note is about, I'll take care of my son and you. Maybe he's even passing off that little signet ring of his family. So Madame and Vincenzo are mother and son, and it's the daughter. He's the son of the Count. And he's left most of it to them. And he hasn't had time to set up Belle or Nana. There's Nana, there's the Madame, there's the maid Lucietta, there's Belle, there's Giovanni, and there's the piano player's son. Any other clues here? Not really. I do notice the ring. The chat noticed it too. I love it. Is Belle wearing the ring? That's a very good catch. I caught it too. So has Belle stolen the ring? Was Belle in love with the... Okay, so but if the theory is that Belle has deliberately sent these chocolates knowing Madame wouldn't eat them, and then she takes a little bite to make herself sick so she doesn't get blamed, and then she gives it to the Count to kill him. Why? Why would she have the motive to kill him? I suppose she could be stealing the ring, but not be the murderer. Okay, well, that's pretty cool, though. Nana. That's Nana's memory. Whose clue haven't we read? Okay, so here's Belle's final clue. Let's see what Belle has to say for herself. It's Madame's drawing room at La Supreme, May 1932. 2 months before the murder. You've heard Madame and Nana speaking on friendly terms, but Nana seemed particularly curious. I've heard you have problems with some of the girls here too. Oh, nothing unexpected. As you know, unwanted pregnancies are a risk of the profession. Some of them have met with an untimely end. And when you try to put an end to them, there's no saying what might happen. Okay. So Nana, who, remember, someone used to work at the brothel that looked just like her. has shown up and been working there for a year. Intelligent, not sociable. So has Nana come to kill the Madame, that who she blames for the death of her sister during an abortion? Is that what's happened? Some of them have met with an untimely end, unwanted pregnancies. So is that the mysterious girl who looks like Nana, who disappeared months ago? You haven't seen her for months, but we don't know when that happened. So is it possible a year before Nana shows up, her sister dies, she blames the madam, and so she's come to investigate it? But surely if she's been working there for a year, then she would know that the madame won't eat chocolate. So surely she's not trying to kill the madame with chocolate. She's worked there for a year, right? Says she's been at La Supreme for a year. So all right, so we have read all the clues. That's it. We now must solve the case. All right, let's look at our last clues here again. So we've solved some mysteries. Let's recap them. The son of Madame tells her, "You've never told me the truth. Now you're going to have to." So I think he's read this letter that the Count sent saying he's going to keep his promises. And he's like, "I want you to tell me what this promise is. Who is the Count? What's his relationship to me? Now you're going to have to tell me the truth." And here, our last clue, the Madame remembers that she says things have been stolen and she thinks the maid stole them. And then here's this letter from the Count saying, "Don't be angry. It's a renewed pledge of our promise." It disappeared, and we think now that Belle has taken it and is wearing that ring. And here is Belle wearing the ring while the will is divided up and given to Madame and her son, who's the Count's son too, we think. And then here is this memory where the Count doesn't seem to be in love with Belle. He's just saying, "I'm setting her up. She's going to work in a brothel with acquaintances and she's going to make us money." A couple days before he died. And then Nana now has a motive, it seems, to want to kill Madame. Perhaps she blames her for the death of a sister. So what is our theory then? I guess I guess this makes me very suspicious of Belle. But so let's imagine, but why would Belle want to kill the Count? I mean, if the Count is going to set her up in the brothel that she wants, why on earth would you kill him? And you surely can't try to kill Madame by sending her these chocolates because you know she won't eat them. But is it that Belle is in love with the Count and thinks he loves her and she learns that he doesn't? So then she wants to murder him? That doesn't seem logical. Belle has a tough life. Fend for herself. She's been in worse places. And here they have a discussion perhaps about Belle. You're getting too attached to her. This might turn into a problem. I might have to get rid of her. Very strange. Here's a crazy idea. Here's a crazy idea. See what you think of this. You think I'm being crazy about this. Let me find that. Okay. What do you think about this? Look at that piano. Now, look at these two things. All right, now, what if there's more than one letter here? Like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. What if what we're looking at here is a letter to Manon and a letter to Belle? And that's why Belle is wearing the ring, not because she stole the letter for Madame, but because he really was in love with her and going to take her away. And he wrote 2 letters. One to Manon saying, I'm leaving, I'm going with Belle. And one to Belle saying, take this ring as a promise, and I'm going to make everything right. And so Madame has realized she has to kill the Count, and she's going to try to kill Belle too. before he has a chance to change his will. But this is the letter from Vincenzo. This is Vincenzo's memory, and he says the Count left a letter for Madame. He's just talking about one letter. And he says, asking you to tell her. And you read it. Then you put it back on the piano. Short time later, it disappeared. So this text seems to be about a single letter. What we can do is we can read the summary of clues. I think it's too much trouble to try to put the clue cards and reconstruct the dates, but box of bonbons delivered from Madame, delivered by the maid. She gives it to Belle. She hates chocolates. Belle gives them to the Count. He ate a couple. They both get sick at 8, suggesting it's because they ate them at the same time. It's too late for him. Every bonbon was poisoned. Nana seems to come from a respectable family. She's curious. She looks like someone who used to hang out there, who we think may have died in an abortion. Belle has been working here. Belle kept saying she would soon change her life. The pianist is the son. That's it. TJ Moneycut says, now I'm liking the sister avenging the mystery blonde. But surely she would know, then she would be trying to kill the madam, and she would know that the madam doesn't eat the chocolates. So that doesn't make sense to me. Is it possible? Okay, is it possible we're overthinking this for a second? Look at this one. Remember we looked at this, and this is the piano player, and we're like, oh, the piano player saw where she put the key. But should we be thinking it the other way, that Belle has also seen where the money's coming from? What if Belle has stolen and Belle is a thief? Belle has broken in and stolen money. The madam has blamed the maid, but really it's Belle. And Belle has stolen the ring. And Belle has trying to steal this guy away. So I think Belle is my number one suspect. That was my suspect. I do want to remind us this. Remember Vincenzo? He'd grown up in the countryside, raised by an elderly couple he called his grandparents, who never said a word about his parents. So that's Vincenzo, because we know. So I think Belle is our thief, and she's orchestrated this whole murder. I just don't know why she's trying to murder the guy who is going to take her away. But I think Belle has orchestrated all of this. And I think maybe she's discovered the note to the Madame, read it, stole it, and realized that he was lying to her and was never really gonna give her a whole new place. She can't have been trying to kill Madame, though, because she would know that Madame would need the chocolates. So I think she's trying to kill the Count. I'm just not 100% sure why she's trying to kill the Count. All right, well, we have to take a break. We'll take a break for 8 minutes. We'll come back and we'll solve the case. I'd love to hear if someone has some alternate theories here. I don't have a great theory, although I'm convinced it's Belle. Not strongly convinced, though. All right, I'll see you in 8 minutes. We'll solve this case. Okay, we're back. Almost ready to solve this case. I've been reconsidering my theory. I don't think it's Belle anymore. I think it's either Vincenzo or Madame. But let's go over and talk about some of these facts. DJ Moneycut makes a very good point. He says, I don't think Belle would eat even a little of the poison if she knew. It's too risky. I think that's a very good point. Jamie says, I think it's Lucietta's trying to frame Madame. If Madame is out of the picture, death or in jail, she's free. I don't buy it. DJ Moneycut says, a point in favor of Belle. Bam Benella mentioned something about the nuns baking cakes. Could that also include making into bonbons? Would Belle have learned that at the orphanage? That's an interesting idea. So let's think about this for a second. Vincenzo, the son. So I'm not sure he knows about that this guy is his father. And I'm focusing in on this scene where he has a confrontation with his mother. He says, you've never told me the truth. Now you're going to have to. It seems to me that he's opened this letter and read it. On July 2nd, here it is July 10th. A short time later, it disappeared. You read it. Seems to me he's confronting his mother about this note that the Count left for his mother. And he's wanting her to tell him the truth. I think he wants to know the truth about his upbringing, about who his father is. And I think she's told him. And I wonder if he's not furious now that his father has been sleeping with his mother, treating her as a prostitute, and never acknowledged that he was the son. And is that reason enough to try to kill the Count? And so he sent chocolates to the mother, knowing that the Count is going to eat them. Everyone knows the Count eats the chocolates. It seems to me that's a reason enough motive. The other possibility is that he's working with the mother, like they've discovered that. I still like the idea that they've caught the Count planning to take this woman off to Rome, and the two of them have decided to kill him. And maybe the madame has orchestrated this delivery to herself. But I think it's Vincenzo. I think it's Vincenzo killing his father out of anger that his father never acknowledged him. So that's going to be my theory. That he sent his mother these chocolates. He knows she'll never eat them. He thinks she's going to pass them along to the Count. And then the Count is going to get killed. It's a little risky because he could have ended up killing Belle, but he doesn't seem to care about anyone. So that's going to be my theory. All right, let's get everyone else on the record. Let's get your theories out. Let's have our vote. Vote for who you think is going to be killed. Where's my new vote? There we go. I got to set up a new screen so that we could vote better. All right, so there you go. Now you've got a proper screen that you can see who you're going to vote for. We think we're going to be asked to choose which one of these suspects are. I still think there's something weird going around with that piano note, but that maybe there was multiple notes, but I've made my vote. All right, everyone get on the record here. Who you think our suspect is. Let me click on solve the case and see what it says. If I click on solve the case, it just says, here's the truth, but we don't want that yet. So everyone's voting. We don't want it to tell us what the answer is. So you got to say vote and then what you're voting for. So we've got one vote for Lucietta, one vote for Nana. I voted for Vincenzo. Derek is also voting for Vincenzo. Do we have any other clue about the piano player being in love with Belle? All right, we've just got 3 votes here. 14 concurrent viewers, 5 likes, and 3 votes. Does no one really want to get on the record? Give you another minute to get on the record here. Get your vote on the record. No one thinks it's Madame, and no one thinks it's Belle. That's a little odd. So when we're done playing this, we're going to look at how it would play differently if you played it with a group. And we can talk a little bit about murder mystery dinner games in general and how they work. All right, I guess there's not going to be any more votes. The votes is where you really find out how many people are really watching the stream. Because YouTube says it's 15 people, but really 3 people are voting. That gives you a better idea what the actual number of viewers are. Could Vincenzo have been in love with the missing woman that looked like Nana, and that's why she's gone? Well, if he was, he's not saying anything about it. There's no evidence about it, so that's odd. Anything about in the crime scene that we missed? Not really. All right. Now, I think, here's what I think also. It told us to never look at these. I think that if you're playing multiple players, each person would get a card. I think one of these on the back is going to tell you if you're like the real killer and what hidden information you have, but it didn't want us to have it. Okay, Stacy says, I just came on, I can't vote. Okay, Stacy is the one who sent this to me, so she's already played it. All right, here we go. The vote is over. 3 people have voted. I've been brave enough to vote. Can we hold up the crime scene to the camera to see if we get an image similar to the victim card? No, we're not going to get any secret image that it didn't tell us about. That would be craziness. All right, let's clear the vote. Let's go to read the solution. We're on the record. Here we go. The time has come to solve the case by answering the following questions. If you're unsure which answer to give, you can indicate up to 2. This, however, could affect your result. Who killed Count Eduardo de Prosperis? Suicide, Belle, Nana, Madame, Lucetta, Vincenzo, and Matarese or Giovanni. Okay, so I'm going to say it's Vincenzo. We're going to vote as if it was me. I am definitely not sure. Okay, here we go. Confirm. Who did the assassin really want to kill? All right. I'm just going to say it really was the Count. I have no... It has to be. It has to be. Okay, here we go. Confirm. Which promise is the fact alluding to? Okay, here we go with the promise. A life of wealth and comfort, keeping silent about a dangerous secret, stalwart faithfulness, everlasting friendship, an immense heritage, and undying love, the revelation of a hidden truth. All right, so I think the secret is about that he's the father of Vincenzo. Now, the question is it a dangerous secret? I think it's the revelation of a hidden truth. But could it be a dangerous secret? if it came out, dangerous secret that she was the son. Chat says the promise was towards Manon, so it would be love, wouldn't it? I don't think so. I think he's promised to never tell the son, or promised he would tell the son. Well, I really don't know. Would it have been a dangerous secret? I don't see why it would be dangerous. I'm going to stick with this one, that it's about being the father. Where does the venom which killed the Count come from? This was theory about the nun's cake. I mean, we're told that it was something, but how are we supposed to know this? It's a weird question. It's got a bitter almond taste, but I'm not sure where we got this, where we would have got this information. Were we told? I mean, do we have the information to answer this? We were told what chemical stuff. I mean, like, we can click on this. This is your notes. That's not very helpful. Where does the venom? First of all, it's not venom. Bitter almond was the ingredient. Really? I mean, it tastes like bitter almond because it's cyanide. But is that the actual ingredient? This is a very weird question. All right, I'm going to put a pastry ingredient, but I don't really get this. All right, I guess we're going to get the answers now. This is weird. Okay, here we go. Buonasera, commissario. Oh, it's Belle talking to us. Buonasera to you, signorina. Shall I have someone make an espresso for you? No, signorina, take a seat. I need to talk to you. What are you here to ask me, commissar? Just one thing, signorina. Why? It was Belle after all. My initial theory was right. I've figured it all out, and I have sufficient evidence to have you arrested. There's just one thing I lack, the reason why. Well, I want to understand, and you need to explain it to me. This is Commissario Ricciardi. I guess this is the person whose actual novels has been written about this. You know, Commissa, the reason my name is Esposito is because I was abandoned when I was born. Did you know nearly all abandoned children die? Only the strong ones survive. I survived because I was strong and I wanted to live. And in order to live, I had to learn the way that life works. So I got up close behind the nuns and I watched. I learned a bunch of things just watching the nuns, but the thing I learned best was to hate. They taught me well. With face slaps, punishments, with insults, with hunger. Another thing I learned well by watching my smartest young fellow orphans, girls just like me, is that even if you have sheer hell in your heart, you have to act sweet. You have to smile. You have to pretend that you love everyone else. That's all I knew when one day I woke up and found myself all alone out on the street. The morning I turned 18, the nuns put a bundle with my belongings in it outside the front door. They needed my bed for another soul forgotten by God. The nun who was doorkeeper, before shutting the portal in my face, told me, "You're a pretty girl, you won't starve." So you fetched up at Madame Manon's bordello. Madame didn't want me. She said I was too skinny, but then I must have struck some sort of pity into her and she let me stay. Sometimes when I was alone upstairs in the bordello, Madame would tell me about her life. To me, it seemed like one of those stories you can watch at the movies. Then I realized she'd tell me those stories because she believed I was the way she had been when she was young. But she was wrong. I'm not like her. I had learned to hate, and she hadn't. You know, when she was 20, Madame was a working girl too. Her name was Philomena. She worked in a low-end 2-bit bordello. Then one evening, while she was arguing with a young man who wanted an extra for free, she met the Count. As soon as the Count met Madame struggling in the arms of that young man, he rushed forward to stand up for her. Before he knew it, he had Philomena in his arms. You know how it goes, right, Commissar? You find a young woman half naked sobbing in your arms. Before you know it, you've fallen in love. He says she was very beautiful indeed, Madame. Go on, Signorina. Well, after that night, for months, the Count would go to the bordello every single day and pay for every minute of Philomena's time. So there was no time left for the other men. After a while, he confessed to her he'd fallen in love. He begged her to leave that infamous den of iniquity. He told her he'd keep her, that he couldn't ask her to marry him, but he'd marry her before God and promised that he'd take care of her like a legitimate husband. But Philomena wasn't a woman who was willing to put her life into the hands of anyone else. She wanted her life to be in her own 2 hands. And since she's an intelligent woman, she found a path that could reconcile the Count's love with her own freedom. If the Count wanted to love her forever, there was a way. She could open a new bordello and serve as the maitresse to run the place. She would become a businesswoman of passion and stop being a line worker of the senses. She would become Madame Manon, the youngest and most beautiful maitresse in all of Naples. That's exactly right, Commissar. The Count gave Madame the gift of a bordello as her engagement ring, and Madame swore to him that from that day she would be faithful to him and him alone from then on. 20 years later, they both remained faithful to their promise. But then you showed up. Commissar, men are just pigs. When they spot young flesh, they all forget their promises, even the ones who are most deeply in love. We know Madame was very beautiful once, but time passes and so does beauty. And I saw the way the Count was looking at me. And you confused desire with a finer sentiment. I know nothing about love. How was I supposed to learn about it? I've just learned from the things I've seen, and what I've seen is if you want to survive, you have to dig deep into the garbage and tear the bone out of the hands of whoever has it. So you decided to confuse the Count with blandishments. You wanted a life like Madame's, and you believed that the Count could give it to you as well. Madame was getting old. I was young and beautiful. Why couldn't I hope to take her place? Because you, Signorina, know nothing about love. If you did, you'd understand it doesn't accept replacements. He told me I was beautiful, that with me he could regain his lost youth, that he had certain friends in Rome, and he'd help me to open a bordello of my own, that as soon as he could, he'd come pay a call on me there. And so you talked yourself into believing that the Count was laying the foundations for a wonderful future for you, that in Rome you'd become Madame Belle, the youngest and most alluring matress in the nation's capital. I believed him, Commissar, but while I was believing him, I was keeping both eyes wide open, because I know that just when you least expect it, life is capable of sticking a stiletto right into your gut. I would spy on everything that happened in Bordello. I'd watch Madame Manon to learn the profession. I'd even discovered a safe where Madame kept the money and the jewelry that the Count had given her. But you kept spying and rummaging around until you stumbled upon the bitter truth. No, Commissar, there was no need to spy. He'd left it on top of the piano, a letter for Madame. He was begging her forgiveness for his foolish trespass. Foolish trespass, Commissar, that's exactly what he'd written, as if I'd been nothing more than a game of cards. He'd even written that his love was as vast and passionate as their first day. And with the letter, there was a ring. It was beautiful, Commissar. The same ring I'd looked at in the picture window of the jeweler's shop. Commissar, I know nothing about love, but that was a knife straight to my heart, I can assure you. 2 days later, while I was accompanying a customer, I heard him talking to Giovanni, telling him they were about to send me to a bordello in Rome as a whore, Commissar. As a whore. Because I was becoming a problem in Naples, you understand? From foolish trespass, I turned into a problem. So you made up your mind that revenge would be yours. I told you before, Commissar, I haven't learned all that many things in my life. And here I've learned that what people do under the sheets isn't called love. It's called foolish trespass. And from the nuns, I learned to hate and how to make desserts. At Christmas, the nuns prepared almond sweets for the wealthy families who made offerings at Mass. And when they picked up the little bottle of oil of bitter almonds, they always took great care. They'd say that this was a powerful poison, that no one should ever touch it because it took only a few drops to kill. And that's where you got the idea. You knew that Madame's admirers sent her gifts all the time and that she accepts them, but then she gives them away. You knew that Madame detests chocolate bonbons, especially with liqueur fillings, and that the Count is a glutton for them. And you couldn't think about anything but that safe full of cash and fabulous jewelry, and all you'd need would be a single item to guarantee a prosperous future. Madame kept the key hidden in the flower pot she had in her office. And with all those tiles, you assembled the mosaic of your plan. You procured a box of liqueur-filled chocolate bonbons. You took a syringe, you injected a few drops of bitter almond oil, and then you sealed the puncture with a melted chocolate. And you gave a coin to Escuznizo and told him to deliver the bonbons to the bordello and say that they were a gift for Madame. You made sure you were around when the package was delivered because you knew that Madame is always in a hurry to get rid of gifts from admirers and hands them off to the first girl she runs into. When the Count arrived at the bordello, you used that box to take your revenge. You ate one of the chocolate bonbons yourself. One wouldn't kill you, but it would make you get sick, and that would have turned all suspicion onto Madame. You wanted to see her under arrest for attempted murder of her unfaithful lover and his young crush. It was a perfect plan. No, Signorina Isabella, there's no such thing as a perfect plan, and hatred always gives terrible advice. Correct answers, elapsed time. Okay, so did we discover the assassin? No. We got 2 out of the 4 answers correct. Score 3, score 2. The murderer was clever and deceived all of you. Okay, I guess the way this would work is if multiple players, is that the true killer, who is Belle, she got 3 points, and the rest of the group got 2 points, so the murderer won. So we lost. And if you were playing multiple players, the murderer would win. Okay, back to menu. All right, so that's it. Before we give our thoughts, let's see what would have happened if we tried to play this as a larger group. Okay, so we're gonna say Deadly Sin, new game. And we're going to say that we've got 6 players. In fact, I'm going to say we have 5 players because I want to see what happens if you say 5. All right, let's see what how it tells us to play. Okay, it gives us the same introduction, except it says the murderer may be hiding among you. It's up to you to help the commissario find out who it is. Okay. All right, 3 different moments. Some of the cards will be available to everyone. Others will be in hand and visible only those who hold them. Okay. Ponder, collaborate. As a group, give the solution. But one of you could be a murderer who's trying to get the group to do the wrong thing. Okay, so the app's going to guide us. Let's see what it says. Each of you will play one of the following characters. Place the corresponding cards in the center of the table. Okay, so notice we were told we were playing with 5 players. And it has told us that each of us is going to take one of these 5. So who does it not put on the table? So it took Giovanni off the table. None of our 5 players are going to play Giovanni. So you're probably going to know he's not the murderer. If I had said 6 players, he would be included. Okay. Choose your character. Place the card in front of you without looking at the back. And then you play the game normally. Giovanni gets put into the table for everyone to read. Okay, then it wants you to take your clues just like before. Okay, and then we do the prologue. So in the beginning, it tells you the same stuff. Okay, now it says read the victim stuff. Put Giovanni's clue. That's the common character that no one is playing. Now it says read your own character aloud. And then read clue 1. Okay, and then you play until the first interlude. Same thing. He says the promises. Then we get the next set of information. Okay, then clue 2. Remember, you never show your own stuff. You resume. When do you get to read the back of your cards? That's the important thing. All right, this whole long thing with the other prostitute. Okay, here are the last clues. Reveal clue 3 of Giovanni. Take clue 3 of your character, read it. Never show your cards. So you can just discuss it. I don't understand. When do you get to... When do you see the back of these cards? Did I skip it? Because clearly the back of these cards is what's interesting about multiplayer. You're the pianist, you're 20 years old, handsome, you grew up outside of Naples. You realize later they weren't even related to you. Madame Menon hired you. Madame is your mother, we figured that out. Your father is the count, we figured that out. This is when, a few days ago. So he did have a confrontation. You guessed as much when you read the letter. Now that you know you're the count's son, you're afraid you might be suspected of having killed him for his inheritance, which is what I guessed eventually. You skip past the instruction, read your own card. It was before the first time. Okay. So you do, whoever picks your thing, you do read this at the beginning of the game, and it does give you the inside information. Only recently did Vincenzo learn he was your son. He likes Belle. If your relationship with the Count were to come to light, you might fall under suspicion along with your son. Okay, if you're the maid, you learn that you've been accused of robbing, and that might make you a suspect. If you're Nana... All right, let's see if we were right about the abortion. You joined to find out what happened to your sister and avenge her. This is exactly right. Past year, you've been working to try to find out what happened. You believe Madame has some responsibility what happened about the unwanted pregnancy. We figured this out as well. You don't want the story to get out. You'd be unable to... They'd suspect you. Okay, Giovanni, this is the part about how you'd have to, maybe your motive is to kill her so you could go leave with the maid. All right, now let's see if Belle tells you you're the murderer. Yes. Okay, so if you're playing multiple players, one of the players would learn that they are Belle and that the Count had fooled you into thinking he'd give you a bordello all in your own. And then you found out when he found out he wasn't going to do that and he was going to send you to Rome as a whore. You poisoned the chocolate. You ate one to make it look like it's you, and then you gave the rest to kill him off as revenge. Maybe Madame might be accused. What's more, you stole a ring from a letter. We figured that out. We spotted all the important details. We figured out she stole the ring. We figured out that the son was Vincenzo. We figured out that she stole from the safe. All right, so we've seen now how the game plays, whether it's multiplayer or... So one of the important clues that was supposed to give us an insight into the Count wasn't really going to set her up. So remember we saw this. He's going to set her up in Rome. You'll be a fine lady, trust me. And then when we read this, we were supposed to get from this dialogue that he really wasn't going to set her up as running a brothel in Rome. That he actually was going to send her there as a common whore. I think that's really an unfair clue. I don't think when I read this, I just conclude that he's setting her up with other financiers, that she is still going to run this brothel in Rome. I think if this had been written more clearly, that he was really just going to send her to Rome to work as another whore, then we would have had a much stronger feeling about Belle having a motive. All right, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a very short little break here for 3 minutes. Then we're going to come back and give our thoughts about the game, the version, the ways of playing it, how it compares. I'll see you in 3 minutes. If you've joined me for the last 3 hours playing this short game, I am very curious to hear what your thoughts are. I'll see you in 3 minutes. We'll talk about it. All right, time for some final thoughts here on Murder Party Pocket, Deadly Sin. The first of 2 games in this series from 2023. There may be additional cases in this series as well. Clearly translated from Italian. Mostly a good translation, although I did feel like one of the key clues was poorly done and a little bit unfair. Wow. So I think there's two. First of all, it's a fair amount of game in this small box, and clearly a huge amount of work went into the app. It didn't work perfectly. It narrated the first third of it, and then it sort of broke down. But clearly a lot of work went into that app. It's got a whole thing of keeping important notes for you. It's got a multi-part question and answer. It's got a scoring system. And clearly substantial work went into the art here. I mean, the art is well done. And there are some subtle little details that we did notice occasionally. That was cool. The part about the ring, we spotted that one of them was wearing it. The spotting of the letters on the piano. The spotting of, there's her wearing the ring. That was fun. The details about he's 20 years old. So I think like it's clear a lot of work went into this and a lot of cool details. The app also had that cool little augmented reality thing where you saw him speaking his last words. It was designed so that you could play with a group of players. It assigned them, each player, to different roles. So like a huge amount of work went into this. And it's playable in two very different ways. I think, though, like many games that are designed to work in multiple modes, like it can play competitively or cooperative, all these different things, frequently when that happens, it sort of falls down, it sort of fails, it's not quite right. And I think that's the case here. This really didn't quite work as a solo cooperative game. It was weird. I do like how they've separated into these acts and with reveals, but it does feel like it's trying to have its cake and eat it too. It is trying to make a game that's designed for social deduction, hiding information, but then also make it properly deductive if you see everything. I guess if you see everything except what's on the back of each of these cards. I guess I felt like it wasn't a terrible story. It wasn't all that believable, though. It doesn't make sense. Belle is this person who doesn't believe in true love, and yet she's murdering someone for not really being in love with her, and she's taking the poison. It didn't quite work for me. It didn't quite work as a deductive game. And it's a shame because of all the work that went into it. Now, and there's no choices to be made, right? You're just unveiling the story with a lot of exposition done in the app. A weird decision about people having information about each other, but then seeing a scene from the other person's life. That's kind of a weird choice here. Now, looking at it from a murder mystery party type game, that's where I think the potential here is actually more exciting, although I'm not sure it actually will fully work. But when you play these murder mystery games, they're frequently set up in a very similar way, where the dinner happens over the course of several acts, information gets revealed. It is fairly common in such a dinner thing for the killer to know who they are. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And generally in those games, each character gets a role, they get told a little bit about themselves, and they get told to reveal some secrets. It's odd in this game that you're not really revealing secrets about yourself. but this is quite close to being a sort of advanced interactive murder mystery dinner party. Like the fact that the app can help you run it differently based on the number of players and score it and let players answer differently and let the murder try to mislead. I think you could take this system and make a very good dinner murder party game. I think maybe you wouldn't want to have quite so much exposition in the app. And you might want to have the cards be more designed with less picture and more, like here are the clues and the details that you have to reveal. So I'm not sure it really works well as is for either scenario, but for me, it's much more interesting to think about taking this system and using it to run a more structured dinner party game. Only just say a couple more words about that for those of you who haven't played those. They tend to be fairly strict about the number of players, and they tend to have a vote at the end for who you think did it. So it's very close to this, but the idea of having an interactive narration with multiple acts and some narration between acts, maybe some multimedia, and with the app being smart about which players aren't used and how their information gets provided. So if I were this company, I guess I would suggest that they stop trying to do the solo version of this. Just focus on making it an interactive murder dinner party game and lean in a little bit towards that. Make these clues actual things that each player has to convey and rules about it. Like one of the things that the dinner party games tend to do is they've got much more explicit rules about how you're supposed to carry yourself during conversation. And typically they'll say that the murderer is allowed to lie, everyone else must tell the truth. So you'd have to spend a little bit more time coaching players as to how they have to behave. And you'd have to do a better job of telling each player what secrets they have to get out and reveal. And you'd have to do a little bit better job implicating the real killer. All right, let's see what the audience thought here. I've never played a party mystery like this. This one seems like it would be fun. I like every character had something to hide, which would make for some fun role-playing. Not exactly a perfect mystery. Maybe that's not the point. My friend and I felt maybe some of the clues were lost in translation. The visualization on the victim is cool. Would have been nice to see it used more. Yeah, I don't think we're going to play this one tomorrow. But I might try playing this with my group as a murder dinner party game. I worry, though, that it's a little thin for that. It's not quite, like, it's not these, like the detail here. For some, the fact that you have to notice this ring in this picture, like, this might be fun at, you could imagine, in a dinner setting if you passed around these cards. Like, that would be a fun way spin-off of these kind of dinner party games. If you had more group illustrations, group pictures that you were meant to pass around like documents. But I do think they'd have to restructure it a little bit to make it ideal to play at a dinner party. So it's kind of a weird situation. I'm not sure this really works in either setting all that well, but it is to me much more appealing as a foundation for a modern dinner party game. All right, well, thank you for joining me. A little rough session today after a week being offline and a week of sickness, so I do appreciate your company and your thoughts. Tomorrow we will meet again and play something, maybe Vantage, maybe something else. I hope you all are well and have a nice week. I'll see you next time.